What's going on? Jackson Wilkie with the original Living in Portland, Oregon team. Portland, Oregon has been put on the map the last 2 years and it hasn't been very positive. What the heck is going on there? And recently with interest rates going over 7%, why is the real estate market still not diving? Portland, Oregon is one of the most unique real estate markets you will ever see. And if you are even thinking about moving here, there are some things that you need to know. But first and foremost, Mr. J. Dow, why are people still moving to Portland, Oregon?
Yeah, I mean, it just goes back to the reason that people have always moved to Portland. They love the climate. And, it's funny because you think of like, oh, Portland's one of the most rainy city in America. Well, people love the Northwest where you get 4 seasons. They love being close to all recreation. You got the mountains, you got the beach, you got hiking, you got nature, all the things. Also, the affordability, when you look at Portland versus the rest of the West Coast, it's still the most affordable metro city on the entire Western seaboard. So there's a lot of draws to people relocating to Portland. And for us, it just doesn't slow down. It's just like this continuation of people moving there. And the great thing for home buyers right now is that since the market is a little bit slower than what it was in 2021, 2022, they're not having to come in and waive all their contingencies and go into multiple offer situations and all the things. Yeah, there still are some of those situations, and there are always those situations in every market that we're in, but it's really far and few between.
Now, being the #1 relocation team for years here in Portland, we have helped hundreds of people, and we still to this day hear the same thing. Jesse, Jackson, I'm going to wait for the market to crash and dip so that I can get in low. But we're not quite seeing that. Jesse, is this real estate market that we're heading into, is it finally going to start nosediving? Can they find great deals? What's truly happening?
Yeah, so that's like the one thing that we consistently hear on a consistent basis, because we are the #1 relocation team, not only in Portland, but multiple other markets. So the one thing I consistently hear is people saying that they're going to wait for the market to crash. The thing is, you look at inventory and inventory is rising, and that's kind of like a clickbait headline across America is like inventory is rising, inventory is rising. And yes, the inventory is rising, but it's not because we're building more houses and it's not because there's more inventory available. It's because there's less credit applications going in with buyers. And this is the first time in history that inventory and demand is being controlled by sellers not wanting to sell their house, because a lot of people, when rates were down in the 2 to 3s, they refinanced their house or they bought a house, and now they don't want to sell off that mortgage to buy into a 6 and low 7% interest rate markets. So there is a lot of people sitting on the sidelines that are just waiting for those rates to come down a little bit. However, since inventory levels, like I say, they look like they're going up, but it's based on the absorption rate. There's still a very small amount of availability. So really the prices in Portland specifically have still been growing slightly. When you look at the month over month and the year over year trend, you'll see they're typically, year over year, they're up about 1 to 2%. And then month over month, they've been relatively flat. So that number isn't really changing that much. The reality is, if I was a buyer in the position of making the move now, I think it's a really good time to go out and do your shopping and not feel like you have a lot of pressure, because houses are taking a little bit more time to sell. We look at the average time on market, and the average days versus last year at this exact time is up over 22 days. Versus last month, though, it's actually down 7 days. So that tells me that the trend is heading back towards a very competitive selling style market, which, when the rates shift, we're going to end up back in the same situation that we were in 2021, 2022 with multiple offers, and there's a lot of people out there that I see saying, well, buy now and refinance later. Everyone's situation is very unique, which is why we love to work with our clients so far in advance, because that methodology really just sounds like somebody's trying to convince you to buy a house. At the end of the day, it's all about making the move when it's most convenient for the client and having the most information to make those decisions. So the only way you can do that, obviously, is by reaching out to our team and then having our, consultation, which, is complimentary. We work with hundreds and hundreds of clients, helping them make that move. And that's something that all of them say they're pleasantly surprised, is us sitting down and building out a formalized game plan, that shows them the path forward with whatever the current market situation is. And then we can adjust as time moves along based on what's going on with the market.
Now, the pandemic really made things interesting for the whole real estate market across the country. A lot of people shaking and moving. Now, Jesse's talking about interest rates going down into the 5s and 4s, and this market will go insane. But why, Jesse? Before the pandemic, we saw 4 and 5% interest rates, and it wasn't great. I remember sitting with clients who were selling their houses saying, hey, average day on market's about 60 days. But why is now at 5% different from before the pandemic?
The reason it would be absolutely crazy. So what the Fed has done now in the last, almost a year now, because rates went up at the end of summer 2022, is what the Fed has done a couple of times now. They've pulsed the rates down to, that 5.5%. I was just talking to Addy yesterday, and he said in the last 6 months, the rates have shifted 2 full percentage points. But so he's like, if it takes 6 months to go up this high, it'll probably take 6 months to go down. And what we've seen is when the Fed pulsed the rates down to fives, we saw the applications of credit for mortgages automatically skyrocket. And we saw the lock-ins on the rates skyrocket. We all know that the Fed dropped the rates to 2s and 3s because they were trying to prevent an Armageddon of people, going into foreclosure.
Mm-hmm.
The forbearance thing happened, and everyone thought that everyone was going to default on their mortgages once forbearances were gone. And at the end of the day, we were saying it from the get-go. You can go back to our videos from when we shot that. We were like, this forbearance thing is not going to cause a problem. There's already naturally 800,000 foreclosures every single quarter. And if you took the amount of people that weren't even paying on their forbearance, it was like a fraction of that number. So even if you doubled the foreclosure rate with forbearance, it would have done nothing to our industry. We don't have enough inventory as it is. We know that we're about 20 years behind. And right now, you're seeing building starts up 160%. This tells me that the builders know, everyone knows that once the rates shift down, everyone's going to come flooding back into the game and it's going to be game on. And the reason why that 5.5% mark matters is because historically, we all know that 2s and 3s were insane. A lot of people took advantage of it. But that 4s and 5s is really where we need to be to maintain a very sustainable housing market. So that's why that 5% matters. And that's where all the surveys say that people feel most comfortable, because most people remember the 7s, 8s, and 9s. 5% to a lot of people is still unprecedented territory. So it's especially for the buying demographics. And if you've never bought a house before, you don't even know really what mortgage rates are. And if you weren't buying a year ago, you still remember those 5% numbers. So that's why the 5% really makes the most difference, is because it's kind of like this comfort zone. And some people will say, a lot of people don't even know what the differences are, but the difference between like a 5% and a 6% mortgage, just average on a, say, $750,000 house is going to be anywhere from $300 to $500 a month in mortgage, payment. So if you take about, a 3% from 2 years ago to say 7% today, that's a freaking, that could be saving you anywhere from what is that, $1,500 to $2,500 a month if you would have got down at those lower rates. However, people typically adjust to what they can afford. And based on the lending industry, they look at your affordability calculator. They can't just put you into the most expensive house. They try to keep your debt or your mortgage around that 40% of your income level. So they also look at your debt to income, all the things. So, that's why it's so important to reach out to us early, so that way we can build a solid plan that gets you in the most comfortable situation. And the good news is if rates go down over time, it's going to increase your affordability. So let's just say the rates go down 1%. That might allow you to buy a house at a $50,000 higher price point without changing your mortgage. So it really all just depends what's going on. And that's why people are looking at it today. They're like, why aren't the prices going down? Why aren't the prices going down? It's because the inventory is controlling this whole situation. When the market crashed in 08, or from 06 to 08, the inventory levels were already sky high. And when everyone came out of the market, it caused the inventory, to raise up even higher. So you had all these, low buyer pool, lots of inventory. Then that buyer pool went away. The inventory levels skyrocketed. Nobody could sell their house and get out from their mortgages. As you see today, there's no houses on the market. So when a house goes on the market, if it's priced accurately, it sells really quickly.
So, being the #1 relocation team and helping those hundreds of clients, we've even had clients in the past year or so sell their house that they first moved into, and they got crazy equity. But I need you to tell me, Mr. Jesse, are things going to change? For once, do not sugarcoat this. What do you truly expect the real estate market to do in, let's say, the next 5 to 10 years for people that are moving here and really thinking about buying a house?
Yeah, so when you look at historical data, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in, what market you're in, typically the housing market doubles every 10 years. So if you ask me and this is what I tell clients all the time, when we're working with them, if it's, and it also, there's a lot of variables. Is it new construction? Is it the beginning of a community? Is it, resale home, all the things. So I'm just giving you a generalized answer. But if you ask me what the market's going to do in the next 12 months, I'm like, I don't know, because I don't know what's going to happen with rates, right? If you ask me what's going to happen in the next 5 years in your house, well, I can tell you that your house is going to be worth more. If we're talking historical numbers based on data and what's been going on now, your house is going to be worth a lot more in 5 years than it is, today. And in 10 years, historically, it should be doubled in value. I've bought in multiple homes. I can tell you that the houses that I bought in 2013 actually grew 3x versus what I paid for them, right? So the best time to plant a tree was always yesterday. The best time to, buy a house is always yesterday. And here's the funny thing. I've sold tons of people's homes, and I've sold lots of homes to clients of ours that sold their house predicting that the market was going to collapse and that the market was going to collapse the following year. And that's when they were going to buy. And I'll tell you what, I've been in contact with these people for 5 years, and they're still holding out hope. Even when I bring up like, hey, look at the house that we sold of yours. You sold it for 400. Now it's worth 650, 700,000. Mm-hmm. In their minds, even if the market crashed and went down 50%, they're going to just basically be starting over to where they were. So it's like, it just makes no sense to me. And here's the thing, people are like, well, I could just rent, and then I'm not wasting my money. I don't have to roll the dice, right? Well, I've never moved out of a rental that I sold and made twice the amount of money I paid for it. And I'm not saying this is a short-term strategy. And I'm not even saying that you should look at your house as a investment opportunity. If that's something you're looking to do, that's a whole nother conversation, right? This is just a single family home that you asked me what's going to happen in 5 years, what's going to happen in 10 years,
Yep.
Right? So that's just what I can tell you. And especially our market being close to flat on price increases is exactly where we need to be right now with our inventory and everything going on. When you see big ups and downs, and I've talked about this on a million videos, those are very volatile conditions. What we saw during COVID was a volatile situation. However, it accelerated our market. And guess what we're in now? Even though the Fed's not calling it, we're in an inflationary period. The number one rewarded asset for anybody during inflation is housing, because the housing prices go up too. So if you bought a house when this whole thing started, unless you're in some crazy market, which probably like, San Francisco, Silicon Valley, where they're seeing price adjustments going down, it seems like they're the ones getting hit. Tech bubble burst, housing prices go down, market correction, housing prices go down. That's kind of like the epicenter of all this. But all the other markets, as you're seeing inflation, it's causing the housing prices to go up, and it's driving a lot of people crazy.
So the one thing that's really helped us over these 4 years being the #1 relocation team is listening to exactly what you need. You can make educated decisions, right? That's why right now, if you copy this number down, you can schedule your one-on-one consultation with the team, and we can see if it's the right move for you to purchase a house, rent, or whatever that is. But if you also want to know what the best areas to live in Portland, Oregon, and if you're talking about equity, you might want to check out this video right here, because these are now the newly ranked best areas to live.